All right. Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with our meeting tonight. We want to thank everybody for joining us for our LEAP test, grades 3 through 5 parent meeting. This is going to be an opportunity for us to go through and to explain what's going to happen with LEAP testing that's coming up here at the end of the month and the beginning of May. And then also for you guys to be able to ask questions. You can use the chat feature down below. I'll be monitoring that throughout the session, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that come up. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll go ahead and get started. When we take a look at the LEAP testing that's coming up, we've got a lot of information that we want to share with you guys, and we want to really make sure that everybody has an understanding of what their children are going to be going through when we begin that process. So Ms. Krill, our assistant principal and our testing coordinator, is going to go through a lot of the information with us. We're going to go through, I'm going to chime in as well, and we're going to provide also some helpful information on how you as parents can support your children when we begin that process. Already we have a question about recording. We are definitely recording this presentation. We're going to be posting that at the conclusion of this. Ms. Krill?
Okay. Mute. All right. So welcome to spring testing 2021. It's new for most of our 3rd and 4th graders. Our 5th graders have tested just once previously. So the PowerPoint that we have is just a general outline, basic information. For the most part, it's all the same for all 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. The only difference we have between our 3rd and 4th graders that are testing and our 5th graders testing is that you'll see the acronym CBT and PBT. And what that means is our 3rd and 4th graders are taking a paper-based test, and 5th graders are taking a computer-based test. That will change next year as we are being forced to have 4th graders take the computer-based test, which I think really is going to be fine for them. They're very knowledgeable in that sense. But again, we haven't made a decision if our 3rd graders will. As of right now, we're still going to stick to paper-based test. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Just for your video, but can you see the screen? Okay. Yeah, my video is not on. I'm sorry. Testing starts on April 26th, and it says it's through May 7th. So that's a bit deceiving because the students will not all test. Each grade level will not test the same. That's just the grouping of the 2 weeks in which we're going to start testing. I will tell you that 5th grade students, if you want to jot this down, will test on Monday, April 26th, on Tuesday, April 27th, and then they will pick back up the following week on Wednesday, May 5th, Thursday, May 6th, and end on Friday, May 7th. 3rd and 4th grade students, those dates are set in stone. The state gives us those testing dates in the schedule. 3rd and 4th grade students will start testing on Wednesday, April 28th, on Thursday, April 29th, and on Friday, April 30th. Then they'll pick back up on Monday, May 3rd, and Tuesday, May 4th, and they will be finished on May 4th. So let's get started. Those were just the dates I wanted to share with you. I have some people in the waiting room. Okay, so the LEAP is just an overall standardized based test. It is not, and we'll get into this a little bit later, it is not a determination as to whether it's not a high stake test as it used to be years ago. It's a data point that we use to collect for our kids, and we use it in several different aspects. But the big question is, if my student does not pass this, will they fail third, fourth, or fifth grade? At this point, no, that is not the determining factor. It just plays a part in all the data that's collected. There have been no changes to the test this year. It's the same. Our fifth grade students that took it previously in third grade, their only difference for them is that they are testing on the computer and not in a paper book. How will the LEAP affect my student? It kind of helps drive decisions when it comes to the academics of your student. Like I said just a second ago, it doesn't determine if your student will fail or pass that particular grade. Can I find sample test questions? Yes, you absolutely can. LouisianaBelieves.org, .gov, LouisianaBelieves.gov has sample test, has it for math, science, social studies, and ELA. They have it per grade level. You can print it, things of that nature. I'll tell you now that they are working in class with the teachers. It's .gov, LouisianaBelieves.com. The teachers are working heavily with them on what the questions look like. So it's not something new that they see on the day of testing. Fifth grade students have been working on practice computer-based questions. So that is new. That's not new to them on the day of testing. Third and fourth grade students have also been working on sample test questions. So it all kind of mimics each other. Like I said before, the paper-based test, PBT, this is just kind of a breakdown of what that looks like on Wednesday. Third and fourth grade students will both have one session of ELA and one session of math. On that Thursday, they'll have one session of English, one session of math, and on Friday, one session of English and one session of math. When they come back on Monday, they will be taking the science portion, and then on Tuesday, the social studies portions. And there's 2 or 3 sessions in each of those. That's just third and fourth grade. The fifth grade schedule, we have a little bit of leniency. I can kind of dictate when and what sessions we take. We just have to take them in a particular order. We can't jump sessions. I'm sorry. She would like. We can't jump sessions. So we're kind of doing it the same way. On Monday, the 26th, they'll have one session of ELA and one session of math. On Tuesday, they'll have one session of ELA and one session of math. On Wednesday, the following week, they will have a small session of English and a small session of math, and then their first big session of social studies. And then on that Friday, they will have the one session of science and finish up with the 2 sessions of social studies. And those decisions are kind of based on the time limits of the test. We don't want them testing from 8:45 until 3 o'clock every day, because their brains are fried come lunchtime. So I kind of swap sessions around to consider those time limits. So let's start with ELA and ELA expectations, things that you can expect as a parent. A lot of these things the kids are working on in class or working on at home. It should be things you're familiar with in the English world. These are just some of the things that they focus on. The LEAP in general, ELA, it's not broken into an English section and a reading section. It all goes together as one big test. They focus on their close reading with the grade level that they're working on across a range of disciplines through science, social studies, and the arts. So that means the text that they're reading in the ELA might have to do with science or social studies, the context behind it. They're going to be required to read text, answer reading and vocabulary questions about the text, and write about the text using text evidence. Now, they should be very familiar with what text evidence is, how to find the text evidence, and the proper way to use it in the writing. They will have to cite evidence. They will have to use words that they are focused on words that matter most in the text and are essential to understanding the particular text, that include context that allows the student to determine literal and figurative meanings. All of these things are things that they have been working on throughout this year with their ELA teacher and across curricular in science, social studies, and math. So this is just an example of what so in English, they're given a claim, and then you have your subclaim. So it's kind of like a standard and then what falls underneath those standards. So these are the things that they are being tested on overall in or have been expected to learn throughout each grade level. In reading, they're reading literary text, informational text, and vocabulary. And then for writing, they're combining that with writing, expression, and using those language skills that they've always been taught, but how to use them properly. So you can kind of just read through this. All of this information, a lot of this information is coming from the LouisianaBelieves.com website. So you can find more information there, but this is in general what they are being expected to do in each grade level. We'll go ahead and post, the PowerPoint as well as the video will be posted on our website for you to view. So this kind of just gives you a general estimation of it can change. It varies from year to year, but in each grade level, it kind of breaks down how many passages they can expect to read. And passages might be a page and a half or a whole page. We're not talking about novels here. We're talking about little snippets of text. How many questions that might go along with it, and then how many written responses that are possible for them to be writing. And like I said, it might go from 1 to possibly 3, usually no more than 3. If most cases, it will be just 2 questions. So this is really important for you to understand and for you to have this discussion with your students. When I took a standardized test, there was only one option, one choice. There was 40 questions and you answered all 40 questions and you turned it in. Well, now things are different. It's very important that the students listen to the directions that are read to them prior to starting the test. And it's very important that they read the directions as they go through the test. Some of the questions will ask for just one answer, and they would bubble in just one answer or click just one answer. But some questions are a multiple select question, which means there's more than one answer. In that case, they're going to have to answer all of the multiple answers correctly to get credit for it. It might say there's 2, it might say there's 3, it might give them specific, it might not. But it's very, very important, 3rd through 5th grade, that they read those directions very carefully as they go through the test. For our computer-based students, 5th grade, this is kind of what their screen looks like. This is what they're familiar with. They also have these different tools to help guide them along the way, and they're allowed to use these tools. They're taught using these tools. There's one aspect that we do not allow them to use because we feel like it's more of a distraction and a toy. They have the ability to change the color of the background. It's not necessary for them to do that. They don't do that in class. So we just remind them that it's not something they're allowed to do. It takes away from time. They're taking a chance of clicking on things and trying to get back or losing information. So we tell them that they have to leave their screen white. If they choose to use the highlighter tool, they absolutely can. But this is just for the ELA section. I'll have what the math looks like later on. 3rd and 4th grade students are absolutely allowed to write inside their booklet. They're given scratch paper on as many sheets as they need. All of those things are provided for them. This is another computer-based image of what a technology-enhanced question would look like, where they would give them the information, illustrations, text evidence, things of that nature, and then they have to respond in something, say like this Venn diagram. Again, this is something they're familiar with, and should be able to maneuver on. We have practiced using these tools in the computer lab. They have practiced using these tools in the classroom as well. This is another example of what a technology enhanced question would look like. It would be a split screen with the excerpt on the side, on one side, and the questions on the other side with drop-down menus. This is just kind of to give you an idea of what the scores look like for grade 3 and grade 4 when they're scoring the writing portions of the test. You can kind of go through that. When they get their scores back at the end, or sometime during the summer, really, it's not going to tell you, it's not going to be this specific. They got this many points. It'll give you an overall score. And we'll talk about that in just a second. I don't think it deleted my things. This is the grade 5's version of their writing task. They'll have the literary research or narrative writing. They won't have all 3. They'll usually just have 2. So for this research simulation task, 3rd grade will be given 75 minutes to write. 4th and 5th grade will be given 90 minutes to write. And that's they'll be given the passage and then the task to write on. This is giving you an idea of what the expectations are coming from these tasks. What the reader has learned in 3rd grade, they're expected to, and they're comparing, contrasting, things of that nature. They're expected to be what the reader has learned from the text. That's what they're writing about. As they move into 4th grade, they're going to use illustrations to relate to articles. And then in 7th, well, not 7th, we don't have 7th graders. Our 5th graders, what is the point of the view of the author for the topic that they're being given to write about. So this is what a sample research simulation task would look like for the 3rd grade in their book. They are absolutely allowed to flip back and forth in the book. They just can't go from one session to the other. So they can use it. They can make notes in the book. They can highlight in the book. They can draw in the book. Anything that's helpful to them, whatever strategies they use, they're welcome to, that they've been taught in class. So there is, when the students are, there are sections where there's a part A section and a part B. So if you read out to the side, what that means is it's a multiple choice question. When it comes to scoring, if the student gets part A correct, if they answer that question correctly, which leads them to answer part B, but they answer part B incorrectly, they'll get partial credit for that question. However, if for some reason they answer part A incorrectly, that's going to put them in the direction of most likely answering part B incorrectly. So they would not be given credit for either one of those. And that's just a sample for 4th grade. It's the same explanation. They have to answer part A to be able to correctly answer part B to get full credit. This is another example of what a research simulation task might look like for 3rd grade. And the 2 statements that they would have to choose. Remember, it's the multiple selection. So this is a writing. So this is the writing sample. So the students are taught that when they are writing when they're given a piece of paper, they can only write on the lines in the booklet. They can't write outside the lines. They can't write below the box. It has to be in the space given. And this is an example of one of those tasks and what that paper looks like in the booklet, the lines and such. The students, they do not get a score if they go over the line. So we push that a lot to make sure you stay in the line, stay in the line, stay in the lines. And this is the time allowed for that written section. Third grade gets 75 minutes and fourth and fifth grade gets 90 minutes for that writing. And that's, writing a rough draft and then writing it on the answer document. This is the literary analysis task. If that is given, this is where they might be given fiction, drama, poetry. Third grade typically gets 2 passages, and fourth and fifth grade would typically get 3 passages. And the time frames there at the bottom. Third grade gets 75 minutes, and fourth and fifth grade 90. These are the expectations that the students are already very familiar with. When they're writing that literary analysis, in third grade, how the illustrations helps the reader understand the character's actions. In fourth grade, describing the character's qualities based on words and actions from both passages. And then in fifth grade, the point of view of both the author and the characters. And this is something each grade level has been working diligently on all year long to get them ready for. This is an example of a fifth grade analysis task. Again, because it's computer-based, they have the ability to highlight things that stick out to them, things that they might need to help pull answers from. And it would be a part A, part B question, going back to they got to get part A right in order to answer part B correctly, and to get partial credit for at least getting part A right. These are the questions that they're going to be asked to focus on those tasks. And this is something they've been working on third, fourth, well, I'd say really actually kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. They're always working on identifying the theme, the point of the view, the characters, the character developments, vocabulary, and then even our kindergartners, we're teaching them how to summarize stories and things of that nature. I will say that the vocabulary, if you have struggled with vocabulary in third grade and you've wanted to know why, it's because they use these vocabulary words, large vocabulary words, beginning on the standardized test. So we really want to have them prepared and those words not be something strange for them. They really do and have been taught the meaning of them. This is an example of a fifth grade passage. Literary analysis task passage. Again, it's a part A, part B. And then you have the narrative writing task. This is the expectations for each grade. In third grade, they're given the expectation of writing, and they really like that to write the narrative. That gives them a piece of their creativity is kind of released. In third grade, they're writing the story, and they want them to be able to show that they can start the story, give the details, talk about the characters, give a plot, and end it. And this is where the writing framework can kind of help along with the literary analysis, but they just have a little bit more freedom with the narrative writing, a little bit more creativity. In fourth and fifth grade, they want them to be able to tell how the story maybe didn't be different if written from another character's perspective or even their point of view. This is an example of a narrative writing task. Same situation as the rest. It's going to give them the story, a part A and part B question, and then give them the ability to creatively write their own narrative. Informational text is a possible writing assignment, or not writing assignment, multiple choice, where they're reading, they're pulling information from that text to respond to the questions with. Just another example. This isn't writing, it's more reading, literary, and informational text. Another example of what is, and these are great practice questions too. So all of our students have been given rubrics, and these rubrics are used in each grade level, and it helps guide them in their writing process. Each grade is that they have their own writing rubric, and it's the same rubric that's used to score the writing on the LEAP test. So we like to use that so that it's all the same throughout. Students have a copy of this rubric. This just kind of talks through the different scorings in the writing process and how the rubric is used. So now let's talk a little bit about math. Okay, so math. I want to say that coming off of COVID and quarantine, I feel like our students have made strides in closing that gap of time lost in the classroom. We feel very confident with them going into this standardized test, given the time that they lost with in-class instruction. They've done a really great job, and the gaps might be there, but they're not going to be as big as we thought that they would be. They've really done a fantastic job. So the LEAP math assessment is focusing on those standards and strategies that they've been taught this year. Now, our teachers did a really good job of back teaching standards and strategies that they missed from the previous year. A lot of fourth and fifth grade standards intertwine with one another, and they are required to reteach anyway, so that's helped out a lot as well. So these are the things that the test will address. They're going to solve real life problems. They have to provide reasoning, arguments, justifications to support their answers. Some problems are going to require the students to show their calculations. And they're going to have to apply, interpret mathematical modeling in the real world context. Again, this is something they've all been doing all year long. So this is just a breakdown of the different aspects of the math test 3 through 5. It's a little more on the school side of it, but just to give you an idea of what content is going to be taught or tested in each of those sessions, that's where that can explain that to you. But it's more on the teacher side, but we wanted to give you that information. Okay, unless the students have the calculator accommodation on their individualized educational plan or if they have an IAP, students will not be able to use a calculator. They're not going to be handed a calculator. I will tell you, when they get to middle school, they are taught to use a calculator. They will be provided with that tool, but not right now in elementary school, unless they have that accommodation. In math, the same as in ELA, they might have the option for a multiple choice single answer, or the instructions might give them a multiple choice or multiple selection choice. So they need to be very cognitive and mindful of those directions as they maneuver through the test. Now, this slide right here, it seems simple, but it can be detrimental to the outcome of your student's score. And this is something we've been practicing and practicing and practicing. For our third and fourth graders who have never taken the LEAP test before and don't typically take a bubble type test, Scantron type test, when they are writing their answers, it's a 2 parts. They physically write the answer, and then they have to physically bubble in each part of that answer. So if that answer is 100, they're going to write 1 in a box, 0 in a box, 0 in the third box. And then they have to bubble in each of those numbers. The tricky part, and understandably so, they're still kids, that decimal, if there is a decimal in the answer, that decimal has to be included in a box by itself. So you'll see right here, the answer was 0.75. Well, the decimal is the first box, and then there is a bubble for the decimal, 7 in the other box and 5 in the last box. This is something they've been practicing, but sometimes they are overwhelmed or not paying attention, and that decimal gets left out. But it can make or break the answer by leaving that decimal out. It is considered a number in the solution. All students, grades 3, 4, and 5, are going to be given reference sheets, and the next few slides are just showing you exactly what reference sheets they are given during the test, and they are allowed to use at their own free will. So this would be the measurement reference for 4th grade when finding area and perimeter and measurement. Grade 5, this is their reference sheets. Grades 3, 4, and 5 have different measuring tools. You'll notice the difference between 3rd grade ruler and a 4th grade ruler. They give them the tools, the rulers that they teach with in 3rd and 4th grade. This is what the 5th grade online math tools looks like. Again, they have practiced this in the computer lab. They have practiced this in the classroom, but rather than giving them those reference sheets, a hard copy, they have it digitally. All right, so I'm gonna kick it back to Mr. Foster for social studies. Did I not?
All right, thank you, Ms. Krill. We're going to go ahead and get started with social studies. The next couple slides that you're getting ready to see, the big and the most important piece of information on this is going to be not in the big chart and graph that's in front of you, but actually in the top right-hand corner. It's going to be the reporting category and the percentage of how many percentage points from those particular subgroups are going to be for the test. So if you look for 3rd grade and 4th grade is going to be identical as well. History, geography, civics, and economics is what's going to comprise the questions on the social studies exam. And then when you look at it, it's going to be broken down 25% from each. So that's going to be the subcategories under the social studies test. There are going to be some task questions and some essays that the students are going to have to create from that, and some short answer questions that they're going to have to answer from there. But the big thing is going to be what area of social studies is going to be most represented there. When we look at the time allowed, it's going to show you in the big graph the 75 minutes, 45 minutes, 75 minutes on 3 different sessions. That's going to be important for the students to know, but realistically, where those questions are going to be coming from is the big important issue here. So again, just like with 3rd grade, 4th grade, identical. The time allowed is going to be a little bit different for the 4th grade exam. But again, the percentage of each one of those subgroups is going to be identical, 25% across the board. 5th grade is where we're going to see a little bit of a change here. So with history, it's going to be 50%, geography and civics are each going to be 15%, and then economics is going to be a total of 20%. And again, you'll see that the time allowed is going to change, but that's where the test is going to be composed from. Moving further into the task questions in regard to social studies, this is where things are going to get a little bit more interesting for the students. They're going to have a variety of different documents that they're going to have to pull from. So you can see here on this slide, we have document 1 and document 2, one being a map, one being an excerpt. Then we're going to move on to the next slide, which is going to show document 3 and 4, document 3 being an advertisement and document 4 being an excerpt from a diary. Students are going to have these different documents that they're going to then have to pull information from, and they're going to have to answer questions from using that information from each of those documents in whatever order that they ask for. It could be, something from document 3 and then pulling from document 1 and then pulling from document 4. And the different types of documents that they're exposed to and the different types of information that they're having to pull from it is going to be very important. And that's something that our students are all very familiar with and something that they've been practicing all year. And for many years. Our teachers have really been using a variety of different sorts of resources, primary sources, secondary sources, maps, graphs, all those different things in order to expose the students to these items. That way, when they do see these different documents on the test, they're familiar with it, they know how to read these documents, and they're going to be able to pull the information necessary. And that's really going to be the important thing for them, being able to prove what their opinion is. And that's something that our teachers have definitely focused on, making them defend their answers using these documents and information from the documents. So again, when we start looking at the test, you're going to have different items that they're going to have to pull information from. You can see here in one of these examples here is using the document and your knowledge. A lot of times they're going to ask for you to not only provide your own opinion, but to back it up using the documents provided. And that's something that our students are very, very well practiced on. They know how that they need to support their opinion with the information from the documents in front of them, and they do a good job of that overall. Some of the other multiple choice items that we see are going to have specific items in front of them that they're going to have to pull from. So right here, you see a picture of a patent, and then the students are going to have to take that patent and then pull information from it. So they're going to have a lot of primary sources that they're going to use to answer multiple choice items from as well. And again, they're going to have things such as pictures, they're going to have timelines, they're going to have graphs, and all of these are going to be things that lead them to both multiple choice, multiple select, like we saw in math and ELA, and then short answer questions as well. So moving into science at this point in time, we are going to take a look at the big idea in what science is asking the students for at this point. Previously, science was a field test. This year, it's no longer a field test, and we're going to be moving into that.
So tell them the dates are wrong in the middle.
At the top, we're going to have to adjust some of the dates. And the dates that Ms. Creel gave you at the beginning of this PowerPoint are the correct dates, and we'll make sure it reflects that. But the big thing in science that we want to focus on is it's no longer about knowing a scientific concept. It's about taking that content knowledge and the skill and applying it to actual issues within science. And we call that phenomena. It's the real world observations that can be explained through scientific knowledge and reasoning. And it is a much deeper level of understanding and higher order thinking that we're asking our students to do. And it's something that our students do a very, very good job of throughout third, fourth, and fifth grade, but throughout all the grade levels especially. So when students are looking at the phenomena, they need to take the information that they know of, take the information that they're able to pull from the documents and from the questions, and then be able to apply that knowledge to be able to use that knowledge in a much deeper way. So that's going to be the real big focus in science. Again, when we look at science as a whole, we look at it's not just what they learn, it's what they do. They integrate the practices, the behaviors from scientists, engineers, and they investigate real world phenomena, real world problems, and they truly look to design solutions to these problems. It's a much more in-depth way of looking at science than we were used to when we were growing up and going through school. So it's really an effective way to really bridge the gap here for our students to become truly 21st century learners in science. And that goes hand in hand with our STEAM education that we do here at Eastside. So again, we're looking at, with science, some of the constructive response items. A lot of this is going to mirror what we see in social studies, mirror what we see in math and ELA, taking the documents that the students have, the information that they're given on the test, and not just showing what they think, but proving it with pulling that information. These are examples of questions that are coming in. Again, a lot of times you have multiple answers that seem like they could be the right answer, but they're looking at for what statement best explains. So it's very important that the students read those questions completely. Just like Ms. Krill had mentioned earlier about reading all the directions. And reading all those questions, that's one of the things that parents can really help us with, reinforcing to the students that they take their time, that they read through everything, and that they have a true understanding of what the question's asking of them. Again, we see Part A, Part B questions, very similar to our math and ELA. And again, those are questions that they really want to make sure that they take their time on, because if they don't get Part A, it becomes very, very detrimental for them moving into Part B. Some more examples of science questions that they're given, where they're given a document and they're going to have to use that. They've got a graph there, they've got some pictures there, they're going to have to identify, and they're going to have to use that in order to answer those questions effectively. Same thing, different figures going through, different models that students are going to have to see. And these are all things that they're familiar with in class. So now moving from science, we're going to take a look at more of the information regarding the test itself, and then how you as parents are going to be able to help us moving forward and continue to help and support your student. The different achievement levels that we have, starting from the top down, we have advanced, mastery, basic, approaching basic, and unsatisfactory. And really what we're looking for is our students to score basic and above. And we have such wonderful students that do an amazing job here at Eastside, and we've got many of them that stay in that advanced and mastery range, but we really want to see basic and above as we move forward. And one of the things that Ms. Krill touched on, and I want to second what she just said, is when we look at our students this year, obviously we know that there's been a gap in learning from the end of last year with the COVID shutdowns. But our students have really progressed, and they've really worked hard this year to close that gap. And I really do think that we're going to see some excellent results, and our students are much further along than we would have ever hoped for at the beginning of the year. And I really do think that our students are going to perform well on this, and we're going to see a lot of those basic and above.
So you're going to say something? No. Can you hear me? So one thing I wanted to explain about, it's called LEAP 2025, and there's been questions in the past about what does that mean, LEAP 2025. Our students are given a goal, a mastery goal, to be able to reach by the year 2025. And this is something that follows them each year. Now, obviously, there was a gap last year without the test, and that's been taken into consideration. But each student has a particular goal each year that we want to see them reach. Ultimately, the goal is that mastery level. And then once they meet that mastery level, we want to keep them at the mastery level or improve to advanced. What we don't want to see happen is for them to fall backwards, which occasionally will, and that's okay. But the ultimate goal, and our teachers' goal, our goal as administration and supporting our teachers, is to see that our students are ultimately mastering these skills put in front of them. So a lot of kids, their goal might be 2 points. Some might be 8 points. And then we have some where we really have to work hard to get them over the years to at least a mastery. That mastery might not come until, their 8th grade. in school, where they're just making small strides along the way. But the goal is by 2025, students to have reached that mastery level. Right here on this screen is all the different ways, the different things that we've done here at Eastside specifically to help get our students to that mastery goal. All the students are taught under the Louisiana State Standards for all English, math, science, and social studies. We use different types of assessments throughout the year. LEAP 360, that's a particular test that's found on LouisianaBelieves.com that mirrors the LEAP test. So the teachers like to use that. We like to use it to kind of gauge where our students are at. We also use the students are on Success Maker when they're in the computer lab. Our teachers are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to test taking strategies, so they use those all year long. We give the district benchmark test at the beginning of the year and then again at the end of the year, and that too it mirrors the LEAP test. We've been offering, many of our students are in intervention type programs here at school within the school day. And then here recently, because we have a lot of students that don't fall into that category of needing the interventions, we wanted to provide them with the ability to have some type of enrichment. So we've offered that after school program on Wednesdays leading into testing. We enjoy putting together our family nights. We had a successful virtual run at literacy, math, and STEAM nights. We had great success with that. The students seem to really enjoy it, although we do love the in-person connections and relationships we build, and hopefully can go back to. The virtual side of it this year has actually been pretty successful. And then we want to be able to provide you, the parent, as well as the students, as information on, all things LEAP. These are some of the test-taking strategies that the teachers use daily in their classroom. And as myself as a middle school teacher, it was no different, and your high school teachers are using the same strategies. They're just basic common sense strategies. Read the directions carefully. Read them more than once. Use complete sentences during a writing assignment and always show your work on constructive response math items. They do this all the time. They can't tell you that they don't know what it means to show your work. It's no longer show me 2 + 2. Like, what strategy did you use? What's your thoughts on paper? Our kindergartners are being taught to write in complete sentences. So as 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, they absolutely should be able to do that at this point. Read all the answers before choosing one. That way you can eliminate all the answers aren't correct and have a smaller number of possible right answers. That's a huge, huge strategy. I've always told my kids there's going to be that one answer that is absolutely wrong. Absolutely doesn't make sense. There's no way that could be the answer. Cross it out, scratch it off for the test. That leaves you with maybe 3 answers left to choose from. It just helps narrowing it down. And you have a better 50-50 shot than a 1 out of 4. Keep your eye out for keywords like always, never, I, no, not, and all. Bold words are huge words. If they're bolded, if they are these keywords, circle them, highlight them, underline them. If the words show up in the answer, they're often a signal that it is not the correct answer. That's a huge strategy that we teach them. Those type of keywords tend to rule out any flexibility, and for the most part, answers tend not to be absolute. So those are just things for them to remember. Skip questions that you were stuck on completely. Remember, this is a timed test. So if you spend 10 minutes trying to beat yourself up over not being able to answer that question, you've probably set your mind up for not being able to complete the test because you're so frustrated. So we just tell them, you know what, you don't know this one, go to the next one, just flag it and come back. So wrestling to come up with an answer that you can not only cause the kids anxiety, it could affect their performance on the rest of the test. One thing we also teach our kids, especially on the computer base, is they can flag questions. to help them remember, because they can't flip back and forth like on a paper-based test. So they can flag questions. What we encourage them not to do is try and answer it and flag it knowing they probably are wrong, and then come back and realize they have some time to really focus on the question. There's a crazy algorithm that produces red flags in your test. It essentially makes them seem like they were cheating when that was not the case. So while we encourage them to flag it, we don't encourage them to answer it and flag it. What can you do? How can we do this together, or how can we work as a team? We are our kids' biggest fans, and we know that you are too. So talk this up as a positive thing. It can be stressful, but it does not have to be, because like we said, this is not going to determine pass or fail. It is just a piece of the puzzle. Please make sure that your child is in attendance every single day for testing. While we do have the ability to have makeup time, it's best that they are here. If they might have a slight stomach ache or their paper cut, that might send them home. Let's get through the test, and then if we need to go home at that point. Look over your child's homework daily and check their understanding. While they might not have written homework, you should have an idea of what's going on in class. Instead of asking them, hey, what'd you do today? Ask them something specific about what you know was on their daily homework sheet. You can go over tests with your kids when they get them back and you receive the scores. Even if they got a perfect score, ask them to explain to you how that happened, or to correct their mistakes. Avoid pressuring your child and providing him with encouragement. It's all about encouragement. Lift them up. If they said, oh, that was terrible today, it's okay. This day is gone. Let's try something new. Tomorrow's a new day. You're going to do great the next day. Be your kid's biggest fan. The last thing we want is for them to be fearful of a test.
This is about giving them an opportunity on showing how good they can do, not on what they don't know. It's about giving them a chance to be a shining star.
Make sure, set a reasonable bedtime and stick to it. Even if this is not their typical bedtime. Like my kids go to bed at 9 o'clock. My 8-year-old goes to bed at 9 o'clock, and so does my 12 and 14-year-old. They all go to bed at the same time. But for when it comes to testing, absolutely, they know that bedtime is earlier. Devices are put up, cell phones are turned in, TVs are off. They need a solid 8 hours of sleep, if at all possible. Make sure your child has enough time to wake up before school. They have time you're not dragging them out of bed, throwing them in the car, and dropping them off at school. They need that wake up time. Testing will not start until 8:45. We will still be providing breakfast, but if you'd like to provide them something more than what we might provide them, please do. Make sure that breakfast is, a high protein, healthy, something sustainable. As it sits right now, they will all be going to lunch at what seems to be their normal lunchtime, maybe a few minutes later, maybe a few minutes earlier, but no one will be eating lunch at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Our 5th graders go to lunch the latest, and as I was working on the schedule today, they should be at lunch every day by 12:20, and their typical lunchtime is 12:15. And then be a part of the conversation with your kids. How did the test go? What stressed you out? What can you do different the next day? Just brainstorm, be a part of the conversation with your kids. And again, it just goes back to really encouraging your kids along the way. So we provide a lot of resources for our kids outside of school. Now, along with providing them outside of school, we use them heavily in school. They are very familiar with Moby Max and with EduElastic and with ReadWorks, Khan Academy. All of these websites are resources for you to have access at home. If they have a login, if they need a login, they have the login in their folders. Please access these resources to test prep if necessary. We're not telling you have to, but these are resources that are amazing, that the kids are familiar with, and just kind of helps to build their confidence going into the next few weeks.
At this point in time, parents, I don't have any new questions in the chat down below. If you do have any questions, please go ahead and put that in, and we'll be happy to answer them. We're going to keep this presentation up for another few minutes just to see if anybody has any further questions. But again, this PowerPoint as well as this recording is going to be posted to our social media and to our websites as quickly as possible. And we want to thank everybody for spending time with us this evening and learning about this process with us. We want to thank you for your continued support, both for us as educators, and that means the world to all of us, but as well as the support you give to your student. We really appreciate that. The fact that we have people that are so willing to partner with us for their child's success means the world. So again, we want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. We appreciate your time, your support. We're going to keep this screen up for another minute or so, answer any questions, and again, we'll have this posted. Thanks so much.